Welcome to Famous People, English Stories. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
Introduction. In this story, Adam is stuck, trapped in the cycle of wasted time and unfulfilled dreams. But through small, consistent choices, he embarks on a journey of change. This is a story about rediscovering purpose and the power of daily action. Are you ready to see how one decision can transform everything? Let's dive in. Chapter 1: The Clock on the Wall. There was a young man named Adam. He lived in a small town, full of noise and calm at the same time. He was 27 years old, smart, kind, and full of dreams. But Adam had one big problem. He was always saying, "I'll do it tomorrow." Every morning, Adam woke up, checked his phone, scrolled through social media, and said, "I'll start working on my goals after breakfast." But after breakfast, he felt sleepy. So he watched YouTube. Then he felt lazy. So he took a nap. Then came evening, and he said, "Today is gone. Tomorrow is a better day to begin." Days passed. Then weeks. Then months. Every day was the same. Scroll, eat, sleep, repeat. The people around him started to change. His friends found jobs. His cousin moved to a new city. Even his little brother started his own business. But Adam? He was still saying, "Tomorrow." One evening, as the sun was setting, Adam sat in his room. The room was silent, except for the sound of a small clock on the wall. Tick. Tock. Tick. Tock. The sound was louder than ever before. Adam looked at the clock. He noticed something strange. It wasn't just ticking, it was speaking. Tick. Tock. "You are wasting me," it said. Tick. Tock. "I will never come back." Adam blinked. He shook his head. "What? Did I just hear the clock speak?" he whispered. He laughed at himself. "Maybe I'm just tired." But that night, something changed inside Adam. He couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. He remembered a quote he once read. "You can always get more money. But you can never get more time." It hit him hard. His chest felt heavy. He sat up, looked around his dark room, and whispered, "What am I doing with my life?" He walked to the mirror. The face he saw was not the dreamer he used to be. His eyes looked tired. His skin looked pale. He saw regret in his own reflection. Suddenly, he felt angry. Angry at the time he wasted. Angry at all the things he promised himself, but never did. He opened his laptop and searched for a blank document. He typed one word, "enough." That night, he made a plan. A real plan. Not just dreams. Not just thoughts. A simple plan to take one small step each day. No more waiting. No more tomorrow. The next morning, he woke up before sunrise. The birds were singing. The air felt fresh. And for the first time in a long time, Adam felt alive. He didn't open social media. He didn't say, "Later." He got up, wore his shoes, and went for a walk. As the sun came up, painting the sky with orange and gold, Adam smiled. A real smile. Not a smile for photos, but a smile from deep inside. He whispered, "This is the first day of my real life." But Adam didn't know this was just the beginning. His fight with time had just begun. Time is powerful. But so is a person who decides to change. Chapter 2: The List of Regrets. Adam sat at his small wooden desk, the morning sunlight gently warming his back. The world outside was starting to move, cars honking, children laughing on their way to school, neighbors watering their plants. But Adam wasn't watching any of that. He was staring at a blank notebook in front of him. It had been 2 days since he decided to stop wasting time. 2 days of early mornings. 2 days without endless scrolling. 2 days of silence and thinking. Now he picked up a pen. Slowly, carefully, he wrote at the top of the page, "Things I regret." His hand hesitated. He had always avoided this kind of thing. Who wants to face their regrets? It's painful. But he also knew this: if he didn't face them now, they would follow him forever. He took a deep breath. 1. I never learned to play the guitar. He had bought one when he was 19. It sat in the corner of his room for 8 years, untouched, collecting dust. 2. I didn't apply for that job in the city. He remembered the day he saw the listing. A perfect match. But fear said, "You're not good enough." And he listened. 3. I ignored my mom's advice. She used to say, "Don't let the days run away from you, Adam." He always smiled and nodded. But deep down, he thought, there's still time. Now he wasn't so sure. 4. I wasted hours, no, years, on my phone. He added a small line under it, "Distractions are the new addiction." By the time he was finished, there were 23 regrets on the list. Some were big. Some were small. But together, they formed a weight on his chest. A quiet sadness. But then, something happened. He looked at the list again. And this time, instead of shame, he felt a strange kind of power. These regrets were not just sad stories, they were lessons. Warnings. Wounds that could become wisdom. He flipped to a new page. At the top, he wrote, "Things I can still do." His hand moved faster this time. 1. Learn to play guitar. 15 minutes a day, start today. 2. Apply for jobs. Any job. Start small. 3. Call mom every Sunday. 4. Delete social media apps from phone. Keep only one. 5. Read 1 book per month. Start with something short. By the end of the hour, he had a list of 10 actions. Clear. Simple. No dreams. No somedays. Only what he could do today. Adam stood up and looked around the room. Nothing had changed. But everything had changed. His bookshelf still leaned slightly to the left. His bed still squeaked when he sat on it. His phone still buzzed with pointless notifications. But now he had something new, a decision. He took the old guitar out of the corner. Wiped off the dust. Tuned the strings as best as he could. His fingers felt awkward, slow. But he smiled anyway. Each note was a promise. Each string a step forward. Later that day, he went to a local cafe and applied for a part-time job. The manager said they'd call him. He didn't know if they actually would. But that wasn't the point. The point was, he showed up. That night, he made a new habit. Before sleeping, he would read one page of a book and write 3 lines in a journal. Just 3. Not more. Not less. He wanted to keep it easy. He didn't want perfection, just progress. He wrote, "Today, I broke the pattern. Today, I took small steps. And today, I chose life over fear." Then, he turned off the lights. The clock on the wall ticked softly. But this time, it didn't scare him. It wasn't a warning anymore. It was a rhythm. And Adam? Adam was finally dancing to it. Chapter 3: The Mirror of Moments. 2 weeks passed. Adam was changing, but not in the loud, dramatic way movies show. He wasn't climbing mountains or giving speeches. He wasn't famous. He wasn't rich. No one even noticed what he was doing. But something deep, something quiet, was shifting inside him. He now woke up before the sun. He walked every morning, even when it rained. He played guitar, not well, but with heart. He applied for jobs without expecting replies. He read books, slowly, with care. And he smiled at his reflection, even when his eyes looked tired. One evening, after a long walk, Adam came home and stood in front of the mirror again. It had been a while since he truly looked at himself. Not just to comb his hair or brush his teeth, but to see who he really was. The face looking back at him had changed. It still had the same eyes, same nose, same hair. But there was something new. A quiet strength. A calm. A flicker of belief. He leaned closer and whispered, "You're coming back to life." He thought about moments, how easy they were to miss. One choice, 1 second, could change everything. But only if you noticed the moment when it came. He remembered a day 2 years ago. He was at a wedding. His cousin had said, "You should move to the city, Adam. You have the talent." Adam smiled politely and said, "Yeah, maybe someday." But inside, he was afraid. He never told anyone this, but the idea of change made his stomach turn. He was afraid of rejection. Afraid of being average. Afraid of trying and failing. So he did what many people do. He stayed the same. Now, in the silence of his room, he saw how many of those little moments he had ignored. The invitations. The advice. The gut feelings. All missed, all wasted, because of fear. He sat down at his desk and opened his journal. Today's thought he wrote. Life doesn't hand us one big opportunity. It gives us thousands of tiny ones. Moments. Decisions. A call you could make. A habit you could break. A risk you could take. And the longer you wait, the softer they knock. He closed the journal and looked at the mirror again. He asked himself a hard question. What am I still afraid of? The answer came quietly, like a whisper in his own mind. Wasting the second chance I've been given. And he knew that was true. This time, he didn't want to just try for a week and give up. He didn't want to fall back into the soft prison of comfort. He didn't want to be the kind of person who changes a little and then forgets why they started. So he made a promise, to himself, to his future. The next morning, he got a surprise. His phone rang. It was the cafe. "Hey Adam, are you still interested in the part-time job?" His heart jumped. He tried to sound calm. "Yes. Of course. When can I come in?" "Tomorrow. 10 a.m. You're hired." He hung up the phone and laughed, not a loud, silly laugh. A warm, real one. The kind that comes when the world says, you're moving in the right direction. Later that night, he took out an old photo album. Pictures from high school. Family vacations. Friends he hadn't seen in years. Dreams he had forgotten. There was a picture of him at 16, holding a notebook, eyes bright, full of hope. He touched the photo gently. "I'm sorry I left you behind," he whispered. Then he smiled. "But I'm coming back for you." And the mirror in the room, though silent, seemed to agree. Not because the past could be changed, but because the future was still unwritten. Chapter 4: The Battle of the Old You. The next morning, Adam stood outside the cafe, dressed in clean clothes, his hair neatly combed. He held a nervous smile and a quiet fear in his chest. The job wasn't fancy. He would clean tables, take orders, and learn how to work the register. But it wasn't about coffee or pay. It was about showing up. About doing something instead of thinking about doing it. He walked in. The manager, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and a kind voice, greeted him. "Glad you're here, Adam. Let's get started." The hours passed slowly that first day. He spilled a drink. He dropped a spoon. He forgot a customer's order. But no one yelled. The team was patient. He was learning. He was trying. He was moving. When his shift ended, he walked home with sore legs and coffee stains on his shirt, but his heart felt light. It had been years since he had felt this kind of satisfaction. Not from entertainment, not from comfort, but from effort. That night, though, something strange happened. Adam lay in bed, and a voice came into his head. An old voice. A familiar one. "Was that it? Is this what you're excited about? Wiping tables? Serving coffee? You used to dream big. Now you're clapping for crumbs." It was the voice of his old self. The part of him that loved excuses. The one that told him it was safer not to try. That comfort was better than progress. He sat up in bed, wide awake. The room felt darker than usual. And colder. "Why are you doing this?" the voice whispered. "You'll give up again. You always do." Adam's heart started to race. His old fears returned like shadows, whispers of failure, memories of disappointment. He wanted to hide. To scroll on his phone. To go back to sleep and forget. But this time, he didn't. He got up, turned on the light, and stood in front of the mirror again. He looked himself in the eye. "No," he said out loud. "I'm not going back. Not this time." He opened his notebook, grabbed a pen, and started to write. This is the battle. This is what no one talks about. Changing your life is not just about habits. It's about fighting the version of yourself that wants to stay the same. He wrote until his hand hurt. He wrote until the voice went quiet. The next day, he went back to work. The day after that, he woke up earlier. He played the guitar at lunch, read 3 pages before bed, and said no to distractions. But still, the voice returned sometimes. It came when he was tired, when he was bored, when the progress felt slow. It said things like, "No one cares. This won't change anything. You're still the same loser." And every time it came, Adam did one thing. He responded. Sometimes out loud, sometimes in his journal, sometimes by action. But always with this message. I hear you. But I'm not listening anymore. Because change isn't about being perfect. It's about not quitting when your old self begs you to stop. Adam started to understand something very important. The enemy wasn't outside. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't the economy. It wasn't other people. The real enemy, the one who wasted time, who avoided effort, who chased comfort, had his name. It was him. And that meant something powerful. If he was the problem, he could also be the solution. So he kept going. One day at a time. One choice at a time. Even when no one was watching. Even when it didn't feel exciting. Even when it felt like nothing was changing. Because he had seen the truth. Life doesn't change in one moment. Life changes in the battle between moments. And Adam? He was finally fighting back. Chapter 5: The People You Outgrow. It had been 2 months since Adam started changing his life. Every morning now had a purpose. Every evening had reflection. His phone wasn't the master of his mind anymore. His goals were small, but consistent. He had built a rhythm, and with that rhythm, a new kind of peace. But change, no matter how personal, never stays personal for long. People notice. And not everyone celebrates. It started with small comments from old friends. One afternoon, Adam met his high school friend, Mark, for lunch. They hadn't seen each other in nearly a year. Mark still lived the way Adam used to, late nights, video games, excuses, tomorrow thinking. Adam sipped his water while Mark laughed and said, "Wait, so you wake up before 6 now? Who are you, a monk?" Adam smiled. "I just feel better when I start the day early." Mark smirked. "Man, you sound like one of those YouTube gurus. What's next, cold showers and vision boards?" Adam laughed politely, but something inside him twisted. They kept talking, but the distance between them was clear. It wasn't physical. It was mental. Emotional. Mark was still walking in circles. Adam had started moving forward. That night, Adam wrote in his journal. It's hard to grow when the people around you are committed to staying small. He began to see it more and more. A friend invited him to a weekend party. Adam said no, he had work in the morning and wanted to finish a book he was reading. His friend replied with a sarcastic, "Wow. Since when are you too good for us?" Another old buddy texted him, "You've changed, bro." For a moment, Adam felt guilt. He wondered if he was becoming cold or selfish. But deep down, he knew the truth. Yes, he had changed. But not in the way they meant. He didn't look down on anyone. He wasn't trying to be better than others. He was just trying to be better than who he was yesterday. Still, it hurt. Growth often comes with grief. Not just for the time you lost, but for the people you lose along the way. Not because they're bad, but because they're not growing with you. One day, he spoke with his mom about it. She listened quietly, then said something simple. Some people are only meant to walk with you for a short distance. Don't hate them. Just thank them. And keep walking. Adam let those words settle in his heart. He didn't start cutting people off. He didn't argue or fight. Instead, he began investing more energy into people who inspired him. He joined a small group at the library that met once a week to read and discuss books. The first time he walked in, he felt nervous. But when they started talking, something clicked. No one laughed at his ideas. No one made fun of his goals. No one rolled their eyes when he said he was working on himself. They listened. They encouraged. They shared their own battles with time, fear, and laziness. For the first time, Adam felt something new. Support. Not just friendship, but alignment. He realized something important that night. You don't rise by pushing people away. You rise by choosing the right people to walk with. His world was slowly changing. Not in big, loud ways, but through new conversations, new habits, new surroundings. And the people who didn't understand? He let them go. Not with hate, but with peace. Because he wasn't walking in circles anymore. He was on a path. And not everyone was ready for the journey. Chapter 6: When Progress Feels Pointless. 3 months into his new life, Adam felt something he hadn't expected: doubt. Not the old kind, the lazy, avoid-everything kind. This was different. This was heavier. Quieter. Slower. He was doing everything right. Waking up early. Journaling. Practicing guitar. Reading. Working. Saving money. Applying for better jobs. Saying no to distractions. Yes to discipline. But still, nothing big had happened. No breakthrough. No aha moment. No reward. No one cheering. No sign that the hard work was changing anything. The cafe job was fine, but basic. His guitar playing had improved, but he still stumbled on simple chords. His writing was better, but his blog barely had 10 readers. He was tired. Not just in body, but in spirit. One night, after a long shift, he came home, dropped his bag, and sat in silence. He didn't open his journal. He didn't read. He just sat there, staring at the wall. Then the old voice returned, soft, familiar. What are you doing this for? You've changed your habits, but your life still looks the same. What if this is all just a waste? He didn't fight the voice this time. He let it speak. He let it wash over him. And for the first time in months, he believed it. Tears filled his eyes. Not from pain. Not from stress. But from exhaustion. Doing the right thing over and over without results, it wears you down. It makes you question your path, your worth, your direction. Adam lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. His chest felt heavy. Why am I doing all this if nothing changes? Hours passed. He didn't sleep. But around 3 a.m., something happened. He got up. Not with energy. Not with fire. But with honesty. He walked to his mirror, eyes tired, voice soft. And he whispered, "What if it's not about the results?" He sat at his desk, opened his notebook, and for the first time in days, began to write. "Today, I felt like quitting. Not because I'm lazy, but because I'm tired of waiting. I've been measuring growth by what I can see. But what if real growth is invisible?" He stared at the words for a long time. And then, almost by instinct, he flipped back through the pages of his journal. He saw where he began. Page after page of doubts, dreams, small wins, and lessons. It was all there. He read the first entry again. Enough. Then one from week 2. I'm learning to fight the version of myself that wants to stay the same. And another from week 5. Not everyone will understand your growth. Grow anyway. Page after page, moment after moment, quietly recorded. He realized something. Even if no one else saw it, he had changed. He wasn't the same person who wasted hours staring at his phone. He wasn't the same person who avoided effort. He wasn't the same person who made promises to himself and broke them. He had kept going. And that meant something. Maybe progress wasn't always a big leap. Maybe it was a quiet endurance. A refusal to give up on yourself, even when nothing around you changes. He closed the notebook and whispered, "I may not be winning. But I'm no longer losing." That night, he slept deeply. No dreams. No fears. Just rest. Because even when it felt pointless, he had done the most powerful thing a person can do. He didn't stop. Chapter 7. The Shift You Don't See Coming. Spring arrived slowly. The trees outside Adam's window began to bloom again, just like they did every year. But this time, Adam noticed. He noticed how the air felt softer. How the birds sang louder. How the sun stayed just a little longer in the evening sky. Something was changing. But it wasn't loud. It wasn't obvious. It was quiet. Subtle. Almost invisible. Just like Adam's own transformation. One morning, he was walking to work when he ran into a neighbor, a woman in her 60s who lived alone with her dog. She smiled and said, "You've been up early every day. I see you walking at sunrise. It's inspiring." Adam was surprised. "Really?" She nodded. "It's rare to see someone your age being so consistent." It made me start going for walks again. They exchanged a few more words, then went their separate ways. But her comment stayed with him the entire day. Someone was watching. Someone was influenced. Without him even knowing. That same week, his manager at the cafe pulled him aside. "Adam," she said, "I wanted to say thank you. You've been reliable. You show up on time. You care. Not everyone does. I've noticed." She smiled, then handed him a new set of keys. "I'm promoting you to shift supervisor. Nothing big, but it's more hours, more responsibility, and a small raise. You earned it." Adam stood there for a second, unsure what to say. Not because the raise was huge. It wasn't. But because for once, his effort had spoken louder than his words. Later that evening, he sat in the same spot where he had once written enough. And now, he wrote something new. The world doesn't always clap for you, but it always reflects you. Quiet effort creates quiet shifts. And quiet shifts become real change. Still, life wasn't perfect. He hadn't landed a dream job. He hadn't finished writing his book. He hadn't mastered the guitar. But something had shifted inside and outside. He found himself saying thank you more often. He walked taller. He complained less. He smiled more, not because everything was easy, but because he was proud of how he was handling the hard. One night, while cleaning up the cafe, a young customer, maybe 17 or 18, came up to him. "Hey," the boy said. "You work here every day, right?" Adam nodded. "Almost every day." The boy hesitated, then asked, "You always seem calm. Like, focused." "I don't know. It's different." "Were you always like that?" Adam paused. He could have said yes. Could have smiled and moved on. But instead, he said, "No. I used to waste a lot of time. But then I got tired of wasting me." The boy looked confused, then thoughtful. "Huh, that's deep." They both laughed, then said goodbye. And Adam realized something important. He wasn't just changing himself anymore. He was starting to change the room he walked into. The people around him. The energy he carried. The impact he left, without even trying. Not because he was perfect, but because he was consistent. He remembered a quote he once heard. "Success doesn't shout. It whispers. You just have to stay quiet long enough to hear it." That night, Adam walked home under a sky full of stars. He used to walk in silence. But now, even in the silence, he could feel something moving. Not luck. Not magic. But the reward that comes from doing the right thing, long enough. He smiled to himself. Because the shift he'd been waiting for? It was already here. Chapter 8, The Dream You Forgot You Had. Rain tapped gently on the window. It was one of those quiet Sunday mornings, gray skies, warm coffee, and the kind of silence that invites reflection. Adam sat at his desk, flipping through an old notebook he had almost thrown away months ago. Inside were random scribbles, unfinished lyrics, old to-do lists, and a sketch of something that made him freeze. A small drawing. Of a stage. With a stick figure standing behind a microphone. He stared at it for a long time. The drawing was dated March 17, 2017. That was 8 years ago. He remembered now. Back then, he wanted to become a speaker. Not a motivational one, not some famous guru. Just someone who could tell real stories. Honest stories. Stories that helped people feel less alone. But life had a way of covering dreams like dust on an old bookshelf. He had forgotten. Forgotten how much he loved the idea of speaking. Forgotten how excited he used to feel writing speeches in his room. Forgotten how words once felt like wings. A mix of sadness and excitement washed over him. He whispered, "How did I lose this?" The answer was simple. He didn't lose it. He buried it. Under doubt. Under fear. under distraction, under delay. But now, years later, the dream was still here. Waiting. Patient. Quiet. Like a friend who never stopped believing in him. He closed the notebook and stared at the wall. The cafe job was good. The progress was real. But this dream had a different energy. It felt alive. Could he really do it? He was no expert. He had never spoken in public. He had no training. No connections. But he had something more powerful. Momentum. For months now, he had been keeping promises to himself. And this time, he wasn't dreaming from the couch. He was dreaming from the battlefield, from the journey of self-discipline and quiet progress. He opened his laptop and searched. Local open mic events near me. A list appeared. One caught his eye. Story night, speak. Share. Inspire. Every Thursday. 6:30 p.m. He stared at the screen. His hands trembled slightly as he clicked sign up. No turning back. The week flew by. Each night, after work, he practiced a short story he had written. It was about the time he almost gave up on himself, the night he stared at the ceiling, drowning in doubt. The story wasn't perfect. It had no jokes. No polished lines. Just truth. When Thursday came, Adam stood backstage with a small crowd of other speakers. Some looked confident. Some nervous. Everyone had a story. Then he heard his name. Next up, Adam, sharing a story called The Night I Didn't Quit. He walked up. Slow steps. Dry throat. Shaking hands. He stood in front of a small crowd. Maybe 30 people. No spotlight. Just warm faces and quiet attention. He took a breath and began. He told them about wasting time. About the old voice in his head. About the fight to change. About the pain of invisible progress. And about the moment he realized staying stuck was scarier than failing. When he finished, there was silence. Then, applause. Not loud. Not explosive. But real. And a few people stood. One young man came up afterward and said, "I needed to hear that. I've been stuck for so long." Adam smiled and replied, "Me too. That's why I told it." That night, he walked home with something more powerful than pride. He walked home with purpose. He realized something that stayed with him. Dreams don't die. They wait. They wait for you to become the person who's ready to carry them. And now? Adam was finally ready. Chapter 9: The Person You Were Meant to Be. The days after Adam's first open mic were a blur of excitement. He couldn't stop thinking about it, about the way his voice had shaken, the way his story had landed, the way the audience's faces had softened as they listened. The applause was still echoing in his mind, but it wasn't just the sound of it that mattered. It was what it represented. He had stepped into something. Into himself. Into the truth of who he could be. And that truth was bigger than his doubts. Bigger than his fears. Bigger than the person he used to be. He knew, deep down, he wasn't just meant to work at a cafe. He wasn't just meant to get by. He had always been meant for more. And now, for the first time in years, he was starting to see that more. The next few weeks flew by. Adam continued his routine, working at the cafe, waking up early, staying disciplined. But now, there was a new purpose in his work. Each morning, he thought about the bigger picture. Each night, he reflected on his goals. He didn't just want to be a speaker anymore. He wanted to build a life around his story, around the lessons he had learned. He started reaching out to local community centers, schools, and even online groups to see if there were any opportunities for him to share his journey. At first, the responses were slow. Some emails went unanswered. Some groups said they already had speakers. But Adam wasn't discouraged. He kept pushing. He kept showing up. He kept telling himself, this is just the beginning. And one day, it happened. He received an email from a local organization that worked with young people in at-risk communities. They were hosting an event called The Power of Perseverance. The email said, "We've heard about your story, Adam, and we'd love for you to speak at our event next month." Adam stared at the screen. His heart raced. His palms sweated. This was what he had been working for. This was the moment he had imagined. The opportunity he'd dreamed of. He immediately replied, saying yes. That night, he walked to the park for a run, something he had started doing regularly to clear his mind. He ran faster than usual, with the cool evening breeze hitting his face, the sound of his breathing matching the rhythm of his thoughts. "I can do this," he whispered. "I was meant to do this." The weeks leading up to the event were a whirlwind. He spent his free time rehearsing, writing, refining his speech. He practiced in front of his mirror, then in front of his friends, then at the cafe during breaks. His heart was full, but his nerves were high. It was one thing to speak in front of a small group at an open mic, it was another to speak to a room full of young people looking for hope. When the day arrived, Adam stood backstage, heart pounding. He looked at the crowd, maybe 100 people, all ages. He saw a few familiar faces, but mostly, it was a sea of strangers. The event organizer introduced him, and suddenly, it was his turn. He stepped up to the microphone, took a deep breath, and looked out at the room. "I know what it feels like to be stuck. To feel like you've wasted time. To believe that you're not good enough for the life you dream of. I've been there. But I'm here today to tell you that change is possible. That you can decide, right now, that you're no longer going to waste the life that you've been given." His words flowed, steady and sure. His story poured out of him, not as a polished speech, but as the real, raw truth. He talked about his doubts, his failures, and the moment he almost gave up. He shared the power of small decisions and how one choice could change everything. By the time he finished, the room was quiet. He didn't need applause to know that something had shifted. He could see it in their eyes, hope. A spark. The organizer came up afterward, shaking his hand with gratitude. That was exactly what these kids needed to hear. "You've got a gift, Adam. Don't stop sharing it." Adam smiled, and for the first time in his life, he knew something without a doubt. He had stepped into the person he was meant to be. Not by some grand event. Not by some magical transformation. But by choosing every day to be a little braver, a little more consistent, and a little more true to himself. And that choice had led him to a life that was full of purpose. Full of meaning. and full of hope. Chapter 10: The Forever Habit. The months that followed Adam's first big speaking event were nothing short of transformative. His life had changed in ways that felt almost impossible just a year ago. The small, consistent habits he had built were no longer just a routine, they were now the foundation of his success. Every choice he made, every morning he woke up early, every goal he worked toward, had led him here. The small victories began to add up. He wasn't just a speaker now. He was an inspiring speaker. He was the person people turned to when they needed motivation, guidance, or simply the courage to keep going. Adam's story began to spread, from local events to online forums to even a few radio spots. More and more people reached out to him, telling him how his words had changed their perspective, how his journey had given them hope to keep moving forward. It wasn't just about the fame or recognition, it was the sense of fulfillment. Adam had found a purpose that went beyond any paycheck or material goal. He had found something that resonated deeply within him. He had found the habit of growth. And he knew it wasn't just about the big moments. It was about the small, quiet moments, the days that might feel like nothing was happening, but were, in fact, the most important part of the journey. One evening, as Adam sat at his desk, looking at the goals he had written months ago, he realized something. He had already achieved most of them. He had learned to speak publicly. He had built a small, loyal following online. He had written his first book, a collection of personal stories and life lessons. He had saved up enough money to quit his cafe job and begin working full-time as a speaker and author. And yet, despite all these achievements, Adam wasn't resting. He wasn't finished. In fact, he felt a new energy inside him. This new version of himself wasn't defined by what he had already done. It was defined by what he was still becoming. The habit of growth had taken root deep inside him. It wasn't something he did when it was convenient. It wasn't something he could turn on or off. It was a part of him now, a constant force that propelled him forward, even on the days when he didn't feel like moving. He remembered something his mom had once said to him. "You don't find your purpose. You build it every day, one small action at a time." And that was exactly what Adam had done. He had built his purpose by simply choosing to show up. One morning, as he prepared to speak at another local event, Adam took a moment to reflect on how far he had come. He thought about his old self, the person who had wasted time, who had doubted, who had believed the world was moving faster than he was. That person was still inside him, but now he was a memory. A lesson. And then Adam smiled, knowing that the real journey was just beginning. Because the secret wasn't in the big moments. It wasn't in the applause. It wasn't even in the dream jobs or the new opportunities. The secret was in the habit of showing up. The secret was in choosing every day to keep growing, to keep believing, and to keep working for the life you want to create. Adam closed his notebook, grabbed his jacket, and stepped outside. The sun was just rising. The world felt calm, ready for what was to come. And as he walked toward his car, he realized this. It was never about finding the perfect moment. It was about making every moment perfect through the habits you build. And as long as he kept choosing growth, he would keep moving forward, no matter where life took him. And now, just like Adam, it's your turn. What's the one thing you've been putting off? The dream that's quietly waiting for you? The habit you've been meaning to build but haven't started yet? Remember, the power to change your life is in the small decisions you make every single day. Take a moment today to choose growth. Start small. Stay consistent. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Build the future you want, one step at a time. If Adam can do it, so can you. Start now. Your future self will thank you.